For 30 years, every morning at exactly 4:30 a.m., Samuel Hayes left his house and walked to the same empty bench. Nobody knew why. Not his neighbors, not his friends, not even the young man who eventually began following him. But one morning, that young man discovered Samuel's secret, and what he learned changed the way he looked at his own life forever. Samuel Hayes was 68 years old. He lived alone in a quiet little town in Colorado, in an old white house with a small garden in the front. He wasn't rich. He wasn't famous. He didn't own a successful company. As far as people could tell, Samuel was just an ordinary old man. But every morning, while the rest of the neighborhood was sleeping, Samuel woke up. 4:30 a.m. Every single day, rain, snow, winter, summer. It didn't matter. He would put on his dark brown coat, take his old wooden walking stick, quietly open the front door, and walk exactly 12 minutes to a small park at the end of the street. Then he would sit on the same wooden bench and wait. He never brought his phone, never brought a book, never listened to music. He simply sat there and looked toward the horizon. The neighbors thought it was strange. Some thought he had insomnia. Others joked that old people simply didn't need much sleep. Samuel never explained himself, but there was one person who became curious. His name was Ryan Carter. Ryan was 27, and his life was falling apart. He had lost his job 6 months earlier. His rent was overdue. His bank account was nearly empty, and every morning he woke up telling himself the same lie. Tomorrow I'll fix everything. Tomorrow he would apply for jobs. Tomorrow he would start exercising. Tomorrow he would stop wasting time. Tomorrow he would become disciplined. But tomorrow kept becoming another tomorrow. One night, after another day of doing absolutely nothing, Ryan couldn't sleep. At 4:25 a.m., he looked out his window, and he saw Samuel walking down the street. Ryan watched him disappear into the darkness. Something inside him whispered, "Follow him." So he did. He stayed far enough behind that Samuel wouldn't notice. 5 minutes later, Samuel entered the park. He walked to the bench, sat down, and did absolutely nothing. Ryan stood behind a tree, confused. 10 minutes passed, 20, 30. Samuel didn't move. He simply stared at the horizon. Finally, Ryan stepped out. Samuel turned his head. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Samuel smiled. "I was wondering when you'd come." Ryan froze. "You knew I was following you?" Samuel laughed. "Son, I've been watching people follow their excuses for 68 years. A young man following an old man isn't exactly difficult to notice." Ryan smiled awkwardly. Then he asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why do you come here every morning?" Samuel looked back toward the horizon. "Because I made a promise." "To who?" Samuel didn't answer. Ryan waited. Finally, Samuel said, "Come back tomorrow." Ryan frowned. "Why?" "Because some answers are too important to give in the dark." The next morning, Ryan returned. 4:30 a.m. Samuel was already there. This time, Ryan sat beside him. For several minutes, they listened to the silence. Then Samuel finally spoke. 30 years ago, I had everything I thought mattered. I had a good job, a beautiful home, a wife I loved, a young daughter, and I was always busy. Ryan listened carefully. I worked late. I answered calls during dinner. I missed weekends. I kept telling my family I was doing it all for them. Samuel paused. But the truth was, I was so busy building a better life that I forgot to live the one I already had. Ryan looked down. Samuel continued. One winter morning, my daughter asked me to watch the sunrise with her. I told her I had an important meeting. She asked again the next morning. Again, I said no. Then again. And again. He looked at the sky. Children don't understand that adults are busy. They only understand whether you're there. Ryan remained silent. Her name was Emma. Samuel's voice became softer. She was 9 years old. One morning, she woke me up before sunrise. She was holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. She said, "Dad, you promised." Samuel smiled sadly. So I went with her. It was the last sunrise we ever watched together. Ryan looked at him. What happened? Samuel stared at the ground. That afternoon, Emma was hit by a car. The park became completely silent. She survived for a few hours, but she didn't make it through the night. Ryan didn't know what to say. Samuel continued. The last thing she said to me was, "Dad, next time, don't be late." Samuel closed his eyes. I thought I'd have another chance. Another morning. Another weekend. Another year. But I didn't. He took a slow breath. That day taught me the hardest lesson of my life. Ryan whispered. What lesson? Samuel looked directly at him. Tomorrow is not promised. He pointed toward the horizon. So I started coming here every morning at 4:30. Not because 4:30 is magical, not because successful people wake up early. I come here because I refuse to forget. Ryan asked, "Forget what?" Samuel smiled. "That life is happening right now." He continued, "Every day people say they don't have time, but they find time to scroll. They find time to complain. They find time to worry about what everyone else is doing. But somehow, they never find time to become the person they keep saying they want to be." Ryan felt those words because he knew Samuel wasn't talking only about other people. He was talking about him. Samuel looked at Ryan. "You're waiting, aren't you? For what?" "For your life to begin." Ryan looked away. Samuel smiled. "You're waiting for the perfect job, the perfect opportunity, the perfect motivation, the perfect version of yourself. But here's the secret." He leaned closer. "Your life doesn't begin when everything gets better. It begins when you decide to stop wasting what you already have." The next morning, Ryan woke up at 4:30. For the first time, he didn't reach for his phone. He didn't check social media. He didn't make excuses. He opened a notebook and wrote one question. "If I knew I had only 1 year left, what would I change?" He stared at the page. Then he started writing. He would get healthy. He would find work. He would call his mother. He would stop wasting hours on things that didn't matter. He would learn something valuable every day. And most importantly, he would stop saying tomorrow. The changes weren't dramatic. Nobody noticed them. Ryan still failed. He still got rejected. He still had terrible days. But he kept waking up. One morning at a time. One decision at a time. One promise at a time. 3 months passed. Ryan found a job. 6 months passed. He paid off his overdue rent. A year passed. He had started his own small business. And slowly, the young man who once couldn't control his own mornings became the man people came to for advice. But he never forgot Samuel. Every morning at 4:30, he still went to the park. Until one morning, Samuel wasn't there. Ryan waited. 10 minutes, 20, 30, nothing. He ran to Samuel's house. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything was quiet. On the kitchen table sat a small envelope. Ryan opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. It said, "Ryan, if you're reading this, I probably didn't make it to the bench today. And that's okay. For 30 years, I sat there because I was afraid I'd forget Emma. But then I met you, and I realized something. You don't honor someone's memory by standing still. You honor them by living fully. So don't spend your life sitting on a bench waiting for the sun to rise. Go build something. Go love someone. Go take the trip. Make the phone call. Forgive the person. Start the business. Take the chance. And when you're afraid, remember this. You don't need more time. You need to stop wasting the time you already have." Samuel. Ryan folded the letter. He walked to the park alone. 4:30 a.m. He sat on Samuel's bench. For the first time, he understood why the old man had come there every morning. It was never really about waking up at 4:30. It was never about discipline. It was never about success. It was about remembering something most people forget until it's too late. Life doesn't warn you when a moment is the last one. The last conversation, the last sunrise, the last hug, the last chance. We keep saying, tomorrow, but one day. There may not be one. So maybe the question isn't, what time should I wake up? Maybe the real question is, what am I doing with the life I already have? Because sometimes, the biggest change in your life doesn't begin with a new opportunity. It begins with one quiet morning when you finally decide you are done waiting.